Good morning, friends. Welcome back. Lou, are you there? Lou? Good morning, everybody. Lou, are you there?
Say hi. Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay, good. So, Lou and I were talking before that maybe this music that leads up, the lead up might be a little too long. And Lou, you're going to try and cut that down, right?
Yeah, I'll try to cut it down, get a little shorter at the beginning.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to continue with chapter 6. We're again very ambitious, hoping to do from 42 to the end of the chapter, which is 47. Lou, what do you think about the last episode?
I liked the last episode, and we delved into a little history, which I thought was kind of fun. That might be another project we get into as well. But this whole question of what happens after life, I find it fascinating. It took us so long to get here because this is such an important part of the Gita. And this whole, I don't know, can I use the word reincarnation? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The whole idea of reincarnation is so core to this that I find it surprising that we're 70 odd episodes in and we finally get to what happens after you die.
Oh, you're going to be 100 episodes in and you're going to keep coming up with new different things that you say, well, how come we didn't come into this before?
Right.
New things will keep coming up that will just unfold. I think the Gita probably recognizes that we need to get there slowly. And what Krishna does is sort of make sure that you're there, everybody's there at the same stage before it starts hitting you with new concepts.
There's two things as well. And you as a psychiatrist, the first one that comes to mind is when he was having a conversation with Ajuna about what happens after death. He asked the question in 2 or 3 different ways, could have been much simpler. And listen, I'm a radio guy, and I understand that what hits with people is frequency. Just keep going over it over and over again. And the Gita likes to do that and go back and touch on points, because the more you hear it, the more ingrained it becomes in you.
It's true. And you'll see that throughout the Gita, important things are repeated again and again. So sometimes people say, why is he going over it again and again? I get it the first time, but not everybody does.
And the other thing about Ajuna's question is putting the question into 2 or 3 different forms. And as a psychiatrist, you probably run into this. The idea of putting in things into verbal form, whether it be a spoken question or in writing or, journals, things like that, that's a type of processing, right? It puts your thoughts into words. It's a way to collect your thoughts and actually get them down to a process.
Yes, and it'll take me into a whole other area of an interest of mine about how people know better when they write things or they repeat things verbally. That's a whole other thing. But you're right. If you write things down, you put it down in writing, you ask it again and again, repeat it, all of these things help it to stick in your mind. Right. So today, Lou, we're going to do verses 42 through 47. And so in verse 42, and it's ambitious because it's got a few verses to go, Krishna says, or he is born into a family of wise yogis only. Verily, a birth such as this is very difficult to obtain in this world. So if you didn't hear the last episode, my friends, please go back and listen to it because it'll make more sense to you. You can't listen to this and understand it unless you've really heard the last one. But in your lifetime, you can have a lot of desires to do good deeds, so if you want to do something good, but inside you're really hoping that by doing this, you're going to get some benefit to yourself, the good karma still remains. No doubt about it. So what you've done gives you the benefit in terms of what you will get for the next lifetime. However, because of that small little desire, there's a stain to it. So you don't get the fullest benefit. So what he's saying is you're born into a family of wise yogis, and you gain the benefits. You have to gain it, whether it be wealth, name, fame. This is called punya, heaven, swarga. We talked last time, Lou said he liked this, about swarga in Sanskrit, meaning heaven. And I was talking to everybody, and Lou and I were talking about it afterwards, that in Sanskrit, swarga means heaven, and norga means, nark means hell. And Skanda, Shiva's second son, who had the navy, Skanda Navya means navy in Sanskrit. And Skanda found by going through his navy, he was probably the original Viking, father of all the Vikings, and landed there. And the place was called Scandinavia. And when he went there, he would like to go there again and again. But he realized that when he went there in the summer, it was Swarga. But when he went there in the winter, it was Narka. So the original names for Sweden are Swarga, and the original names for Norway are Norge. And the British changed it into English, which was Sweden and Norway. But anyway, the difference between death and birth, that period of time where your mind is still alive, your intellect is still alive, although it doesn't remember all of the things that you have in this lifetime, but the vasanas are still alive. And the guilt that you carry on, the sinful things that you have done that made you think again and again of these things, you must listen to the previous episode to hear this in detail. Those keep haunting you. And if they haunt you a lot, then you're in hell, because it's bothersome. Because imagine, I don't know how long we are up there between the time that we are dead and alive again, but to be haunted by those negative thoughts would be awful. That's hell. But people who are peaceful and have done nothing but good things in their life, they sleep beautifully. They dream peaceful dreams. So they're in heaven. So it could happen now, it could happen in between, during your life, during this lifetime, or it could happen in the next life, that you get a rich family, a pure family, a family where the family members are only interested in self-development and spirituality, and they have the wealth to indulge themselves to do that, where they don't have to really focus on survival.
Right.
So your desires in your next life will lead you to an environment when you're born again. If you've been a really good person and done good karma, you choose which parents you want to be born to. You choose the environment in which you want to be born. So if your desires for a strong spiritual growth, you will be born in such an environment to such parents. Verse 43 says, there, united with the knowledge acquired in his former body, because his mind is still alive, he strives more than before for perfection. So he dies, his mind continues, he gets a new body, but he's still got the knowledge that he acquired in his former body, and he strives more than before for perfection. So in verse 41, it says, if you follow the righteous path, but not 100%, you're not self-realized, you get to be born in the home of the pure and prosperous. In verse 42, if you're even better than that, even more righteous, and you do good deeds without any thought of any reward for yourself, you're born into a family of wise yogis. Verse 43 now says that now that he's in such a good environment, he strives even harder for self-realization. So you choose your own parents. Remember that. That if you, but of course, only if you have done good karmas. And the better your karmas, the more spiritual you've been, the more choices you have in terms of where you want to go. People who have done bad karmas are going to be born in that kind of a lifetime. You can only choose those parents so you choose your environment because your desires needed that environment.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm an alcoholic and I crave alcohol, that's a bad example, but I will be born in a family that owns bars.
Yeah.
So you have a physical body and you have an outer body. That's what you have to remember. It's not just the physical body in the family that you're born to with your genes, but you have an outer body. And that outer body is your culture, your country, your financial situation, your values, and the opportunities available to you. And the better you are in terms of your karmas, the more choices you have in terms of where you're born. So you have the skills and knowledge in your mind. You know, you've heard of all these child prodigies, and I wish we could talk more about reincarnation, because it's something that I've studied a lot, and I have these examples of child prodigies who, from an early age, come out with skills that you just say, how is this possible? And it's only possible for those children who are prodigies and who remember their previous life. And that usually only lasts for the first couple of years, where they can talk and they can say what their previous life was all about. So you have the skills and knowledge in your mind from your previous birth, but a new body and a conducive environment where you can put this into action. So you could, because of Even though you have good karma, you choose the wrong parents. You choose the wrong parents, or you choose the right parents but the wrong environment. It's because of your karma. You could choose the right parents but the wrong neighborhood. So, as an example, Buddha was born after, in his previous life, he had achieved quite a bit, but he hadn't become self realized. He was born to a king and a queen. He was born in a palace. And the astrologers at the time said, this man is going to grow up to be self realized. He's going to be one of the greatest spiritual teachers of all time. And the prince says, the king, his father said, humbug. I'm not going to let him become that. I want him to be the king. So he walled him in. He did not allow him to go outside his palace. He said, give him every desire to be fulfilled that he wants. He actually brought women in for him, for his son, Buddha.
Oh.
He brought women in, he gave him horses to ride, he gave him wealth, he gave him everything, but he did not allow him to leave the palace. But Krishna broke through. So, right parents, in some sense, because they were wealthy
Right.
and they could have given him the spiritual knowledge, but they didn't. He had to get that on his own. He had to break through, leave the palace with deceit, and become dressed as somebody else, go outside, not as the prince, see the suffering. And he said, I can't do this anymore. He just left and he became Buddha. That's a whole other story.
Mm-hmm.
So, cause and effect, there's always a balance of this cause and effect. Whatever you do, you get the benefits of that or the punishments for that. So verse 44 says, by that former practice alone, he is born irresistibly. Even wishing to know yoga, he goes beyond Shabda Brahman. Shabda in Sanskrit means word. So by the former practice alone, he's born irresistibly. He can't prevent it. He gets born in a good home, good practice, everything is good. He wants to know beyond yoga. He gets to be beyond Shabda Brahman. Now, Shabda Brahman, Shabda means word. Brahman is where we want to achieve, right? We want to achieve self-realization, which is the Atman. Now, when we want, because the Atman is unknown to us, Brahman is unknown to us, what do? We can't, in the beginning, just close our eyes and contemplate. It's very difficult to just think of nothing.
Right.
So what in the Hindu temples and prayers, you look at something. We've talked about this before, where you have, let's say, an idol, a murti of Ganesh or Shiva, and it's made out of stone. The stone is the grossest form of an idol, and the sound Om is the most subtle form of an idol. Why? Because a stone is captured by all the senses. You can tap on the stone with a metal spoon and you can hear the voice, the sound. You
Yep.
can tap on wood with the spoon and hear a different sound. You can smell the stone if you wanted to. You can taste the stone if you wanted to. You can see the stone and you can hear. You can, all five senses, you can touch the stone.
Right.
But the next subtle thing is fire. A lot of religions pray to fire. Why? Because it is the same thing, except that there are two things, two senses that you cannot do with fire. You cannot taste it and you cannot touch it. It's too hot.
Right.
Both, if you touch it or taste it, you're going to get hurt. So you don't. But all the others. So you've eliminated two senses by doing that. The higher level of that is sound or shabda. And you say Om or you say a mantra, and that is your way to get to Brahman. And what this is saying is that you go beyond Shabda Brahman, which is you go beyond even Om, and you don't need anything. You can go to Brahman without the sound of anything, without that most subtle of idols.
Right.
So verse 45 says, but the yogi, striving with assiduity, assiduously striving, and being completely free of sins. We talked last episode about what sins were. Perfected through many lives and many births, then he reaches the supreme goal. So each life we get rid of a little bit more of our vasanas. So we have, let's say, 900 vasanas. We get to there by each life dropping a few of the desires in each life, or increasing our desires, going downwards. That's where the game, by the way, in India came, for snakes and ladders.
Oh,
Do
really?
you know the game, Lou? Over
Well,
here, I think it's called Chutes and
Truth and
Ladders.
ladders, yeah, yeah.
But initially, when it was formed, it was snakes and ladders. And what they designed the game as, if you see the original Indian version, each time you go up with a ladder, you're doing good karma
Right.
until you reach self realization. But you do something bad and you come straight down right to the beginning. So, depending on your births and how you get rid of these desires, you can get rid of not all 900 at one time in one birth, but each birth you get rid of a few, you get rid of a few, get rid of a few. And the bigger ones, the more ones that stick with you remain. So you can say, I'm not attached to this, I'm not attached to that. So each life you get rid of a few, but some remain. And then each time, each life, he strives with assiduity and being completely free of sins, perfected through many lives and birth, he reaches the supreme goal. Verse 46, sorry, I'm rushing, folks, but I want to get through to the end of chapter 6. Verse 46, the yogi is deemed superior to the ascetics, superior to even the wise, then superior to the performers of action. Therefore, be a yogi. So, Gita talked to us before about doing karma yoga or bhakti yoga or jnana yoga. Those are the three ways in which you get to the Atman. Karma yoga is for the body, bhakti yoga is for the mind, jnana yoga is for the mind, for the intellect.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing today is jnana yoga. The intellect is understanding the concepts of this. Bhakti yoga is where you just pray and sing and you have devotion towards a higher power or God. Karma yoga is where you actually roll up your sleeves, go and help people by being in a food kitchen, building them a house, or helping them physically. So if you're body oriented, you do karma yoga. If you're mind oriented, emotion oriented, you do bhakti yoga. If you're intellect oriented, you do jnana yoga. But in the process of doing this, let's say as I'm relating to you whatever I've learned, I'm doing a service, and in that, if I say I'm enjoying this so much because I'm developing with it, I get fixated on the what I'm doing,
Right.
then I've really lost sight of my real goal, which is to get to further self-development or self-realization. And he's saying that the yogi is far better than a bhakti yoga or karma yogi or a jnana yogi, because he does what he has to, but then leaves it and then goes on to get self-realized. And the last one, which is verse 47, Krishna says, and of all yogis, he who, with the inner self absorbed in me, with a capital M, worships me, with a capital M, with Shraddha, faith and devotion, he is considered by me to be wholly united. So, in this last verse of chapter 6, Lord Krishna says the yogi is superior to all other types of seekers who might get stuck in their paths because they enjoy karma, bhakti, jnana. But the yogi keeps his ultimate goal in mind. Same thing with that I was saying before. And he worships the Lord, Atman, and the Lord then takes him on to himself because of that.
Right.
So, friends, chapter 6, the total chapters in the Gita are 18. We have now completed exactly 1/3 of the Gita. Monumental task as far as I'm concerned. For me, I never thought I'd get here, but I hope you ask any questions. I hope you're enjoying this so far. Any issues, any questions, please do reach out to us.
If
Thank
you're
you so
listening
much.
if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or Google Podcasts, head to our Facebook page, Gita, the Memoirs of a Psychiatrist. That's a better way to communicate with us. Drop us a note, make a comment, send us a direct message. We'd love to hear from you. Can you give us a little tease of chapter 7?
Chapter 7 is a much longer chapter, so we'll see what happens when we get there. And your idea also, by the way, before we talk about chapter 7, of us talking a little bit more about how people migrated from India out to places like Scandinavia, Greece, Germany, Switzerland. All of that is also fascinating to me. I would love to. I certainly would like to ask our audience if that's something that they would enjoy. Please do write us a note. If you write that in your comments, in your messages, I'll be sure to do that. Thank
Well,
you so much.
most of us here in the West are looking at this and saying we haven't been influenced by this, but we're talking about ways as we go. It's part of our background. It's part of our influence. We're kind of included in this as well. So it's good to know this history and understand how it plays into who we are and what we do.
Okay, well, we'll do that then.
All right.
Thanks, Lou. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.